Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is the most popular, thought-provoking, debate-inducing, reality-shattering piece of media made by the French Saints Curies, developed by Sandfall Interactive with 32 devs and a dog, with the sole purpose of sweeping every category in the Game Awards, framed within a fantasy world closely resembling Europe, where, in contrast to reality, Paris has the only functional human society. But just like real life, it's under existential threat from demonic entities and a tall eldritch mommy who sits in the corner of the map crying until she gets up to make everyone else cry. We take charge of a group of the oldest people in society and a 16-year-old to make our way through the continent to stop the painters and save this wondrous world. This debut hit is not just a JRPG in a brain, but a masterstroke of gameplay design, environment design, enemy design, and the music. In other turn-based RPGs, you can just watch your ass getting pummeled by the dick demon, the only recourse being strategic deployment of your buffs plus skills and a bit of luck, or just overlevel yourself. But here you can be sure that your lack of fine motor skills is securing that defeat, because of its really well-done real-time inputs, like the quick-time events to buff up your skills, and the ability to counter attacks either by dodging like a coward or parrying like a professional. Perfectly parrying a long combo activates my neurons in a way Lunar Speed can't. Instead of some ever-depleting magic points, we earn action points for skills through base attacks and perfect parries. The jump counters and gradient parries color the combat even more, and there's a lot of combat, so better be ready to learn how our team with their unique skills, weapons and attacks play off each other to efficiently rack up that damage output. To further enhance your playstyle, you have to get a 4-year degree in Pictos and Lumina Engineering, an overwhelming and convoluted system of applying perks and stat buffs, which somehow works well once you get used to it. Pictos are tools for buffing stats, some of which are really important, on top of applying a special effect to a character, which can be learned then equipped as passive abilities using Lumina points that you find scattered across the world, which can't be reset once used. Some special effects are just broken, like having an extra turn or life. Some are balanced, like taking more damage to deal more damage, or straight up gambling with your damage numbers. And some are really questionable, like dealing more damage when doing blackface. And if you count all the weapon effects, there are enough colors on the palette here to paint your perfect hate crime, and that alone is worth the sticker price. Even if you have some skill issues, you can build your party around it. The game is accessible to all kinds of gamers. As a Sekiro fan, you can waste hours learning every parry window, and like a Dark Souls enjoyer, you can parry dodge all over the place. Plus the bonfires and the refillable flasks will make you feel right at home, and the shooter players can use free aim to see what Europeans think a gun does. As an added bonus, there's a pretty good story here that'll paint every emotion into your mind until it leaves you questioning reality. The game opens with a shot of our main protagonist on the rooftops throwing rocks at a huge timer on the horizon to calm his mind. With just a casual conversation with his sister Maëlle, the game catches you up on the details of our main character, Gustave, readying himself to say goodbye to his ex-lover, Sophie, who is going to be gamaged that day, meaning they get turned into beautiful flowers, and readying up for his expedition following the trail laid by previous expeditioners to stop the painters. The Gamage Bringer, who paints the target date on the monolith for everyone to see. To ease in the Persona fans, he asks relationship advice from a 16-year-old, then beats her up. As soon as you get to move around, we are taken aback by Maëlle's sprint velocity and the Unreal Traversal system, as well as the Unreal Engine jankiness with its abysmal performance. So I install a couple of mods, giving me the adequate placebo effect to continue further. With just a couple of lines of dialogue with Sophie walking through the town, you will realize the depth and history of their relationship and the horror that will follow you around. A few minutes of good writing was enough to make them feel real. Thus her passing hits home and fuels our motivation to stop the painters. At the Expedition Festival, Gustave beats up a child a few more times before we learn about the fracture, which is when the painters came to fuck shit up 67 years ago. With their fiery speech, our sister sends off our expedition to die off on the continent. The moment we step on the continent, we encounter the oldest man, who immediately attacks us, an allegory of how the boomers have caused insurmountable suffering to those who come after. We somehow survive the great DEI purge to end up in a random forest filled with corpses, and we decide to join them. Suddenly, while Luna appears to stop Gustav from summoning his persona, our debate on suicide gets interrupted by an enemy dragging us into Luna's chemistry class, which doesn't make any sense. He is iced above fire? But it's unique and fun to build up stains to set up for that huge damage at the end. Almost as fun as flying around Reserve to see her elegant sprint animation and no other reason. To reach the rendezvous point, we hike across the forest fighting these angular fuckers known as the Nevrons, entities created by the painters that populate these lands and are really hostile unless they are white. These ones just send you on a short fetch quest to help them with their white guilt. Our destination had only a suspicious message pointing to Mael's whereabouts, and Gustav wants to run there blind, while Luna wants to follow the protocol, leading to another debate on our way. Welcome to the Overworld, the central chunk of the continent which connects all areas together, and itself is a major area with bosses, secrets, items, NPCs, and more. Grappling with the scale difference of this overwhelming overworld is tiring. So we take a break by making camp, which always instantly teleports us to this specific cliffside, facing the painters. The camp is where we chill, listen to music, hang out with our party, upgrade our shit, avoid asking the real questions, or write in Gustav's journal, which is always the same throwaway line flashed on screen, and we can't even read it. Luna falls for Gustav's compelling arguments to march on to the underwater level until they find a door sticking out the terrain, which warps them to the Manor, an extremely oversized house for a family of 5, in which we run around attempting to open every door we find, eventually stumbling into Mael just chilling here. She also has no idea how she ended up here, or why the demonic homeless man is helping her out. The curator also helps us out by gatekeeping the story's upcoming nosedive by teaching us the jump and Mael's battle stances. The only thing you need to know is how to get into the virtuoso stance, then you win. Upon finding Mael, the story drops its tension with the introduction of the Gestrals, creatures with weird paintbrush heads that talk and act like minions. Most of them you find throughout Europe are merchants, and sometimes they lock their best stuff behind a tool. This one here is Noku, the world's greatest merchant, who sells 3 things and helps us find a way to the Gestral village, so we can ask their chef for a way to cross the ocean. Fast forwarding through the potato sack mech fights, we get to the village on the verge of collapse to find Golgra the chef, who forces us to fight in their tournament, where we inevitably get to face the champion, Ciel, one of our expeditioners, and she has a much more complicated kit requiring you to apply foretels to buff up skills that consume them, while managing the sun and moon charges to enter the twilight mode with a hefty multiplier to seal the deal. Golgra tells us to seek Eski, a legendary mythical being who is the strongest and the laziest among all beings. The price you have to pay to get to him is some Forspoken tier comedy wit. He can be best described as if the Michelin Man and the Marshmallow Man had a baby with some fancy curtains stapled on it, but he behaves like Baymax from Big Hero 6. All the silly weird shit he says has some deliberate intent behind it, and now he wants us to search for his rocks to help him swim. Our time spent failing to get the stone is a small upgrade from the Forspoken writing, and it was worth it since we unlock Eski in the overworld, making our travels a whole lot easier. Back at camp, Mael starts entering the black and white Yati mode to get bullied by the old man with a masked woman, who at times just watches her slate and says some cryptic shit, along with some random nightmares she has. Seeing more of Gustav interacting with the party and comforting Mael through her troubles helps me, the player, not view them as Lydia from Skyrim. The curator is also here now, in this dark corner, as a blacksmith. Searching for the rock, we reach Strong Wave Cliffs to see Eski trivialize our entire mission and Gustav geek out about the giant wheel being a weapon to run over the painters with, which I later learned to be true from an expedition journal. These journals are well-made audio logs that you find all across the continent, having the perfect level of world building without breaking its intrigue. Finally, after fighting through the area and finishing off this two-faced lamb boss, we get the rock. To celebrate, Mael and Gustav starts throwing rocks again as the oldest man menacingly walks up, shoots Gustav, traps Mael in a bubble, and just stands there while Gustav hits him with everything he's got. Just like that, the best character dies, and the second best one was about to die. But someone flashes in, just late enough for Gustav to be dead and just in time to Aura farm. The exchange between them about families being torn apart and who belongs where on top of all the questions from before keeps us perpetually pondering. One thing is certain, the masked one is his family, and her presence here forces him to let us walk away. Back at camp, while everyone's grieving, the man just waltzes in to finally replace Gustav from the game files, introducing himself as. He explains his role in the first expedition with the old man, Renoir, their commander. They just randomly acquire immortality from the Paintress, so Renoir turns evil to keep her safe. Everyone just takes him at his word because he's hot. Before we can ask him the real questions, we must survive this brutal battlefield, as enemies now can put your screen in grayscale mode while attacking, and you must press a different button to parry this. And Verso here has a far better moveset than Gustav, with a DMC-style ranking system to amplify his skills, maintained by avoiding hits and tugging on poles. For all the cool shit we get from Gustav's death, the game actually shows the cast grieving and in conflict between moving on and mourning. But we have to fight this really cool boss. Before we can pay the last respects, which was pretty powerful. And we move on to Monoko Station to fight and recruit Monoko, Verso's best friend, as you can clearly see from this duet.
Good, yes, good.
Later we fight off a Never-Run attack, where he teaches us the game-changing gradient attacks. Verso uses this one simple trick to make Monoko come with us, and all his powers come from his love for feet.
Feet? Really?
For collecting the feet of Nevrons, which empowers him to use their powers. Now with the body fully formed and Noko tagging along en route to Old Lumiere, the original Lumiere before the fracture, to destroy the Paintress's heart, turning off her Gommage barrier. Just as we are moving onwards, the game also moves on quickly from Gustav's death and accepts Verso wholeheartedly into the team, especially after he shows off this neat trick. He also gets an awkward bonding system, with all the team members providing the bare minimum depth to these characters, as it just feels like everyone's leading each other on to drop a truth bomb at the end. And the best parts were with the non-humans. I wish the good sections were woven into the narrative and not hidden behind a black screen. At least we get to unlock more gradient attacks. On reaching Old Lumiere, we observe it to be lit up with huge swords, and Monoko decides to crash my game, along with some builders, separating the gang in two. One group finds a huge monster impaled to death and a journal that reveals. Mael proceeds towards the city's end. Afterwards, suddenly disappears on her to find a mansion which opens up for her. We notice the curator and the familiar interior from the manor that we constantly keep finding ourselves in, from all the teleporting doors spread across the continent. Verso tries to run in from the shadows, but Renoir was waiting. The whole gang catches up while Renoir reveals himself to be our father and interrupts us from confronting Verso with his boss fight. We win, but in the cutscene, Renoir unleashes a massive attack on our party, killing Noko, who was just here to die. Before we can recover from this tragedy, Verso had to block another attack, forcing her into the PTSD mode, where the masked woman comes out to her as herself, but scarred, then goes back into the manor, now in flames, and disappears. We return with just a dead Noko in a jar, and everyone just kind of brushes off Verso keeping them in the dark. With the Paintress's heart gone, Lorraine brings up Expedition 58's info on using Axon hearts to create a super weapon. First, we set our eyes on Siren, she who plays with wonder, with her ability to make people lose their heads, leading them astray, and resides at the bottom of maybe the best area in the game. Only Lune had her eyes on the goal to be unswayed by her stereotypical dead Asian parents, and Nook Siren to get that pure chroma heart. Next, we set sail to the island with too many creepy faces plastered across its terrains to face the one with too many faces, Visage, the one who guards the truth with lies, and he attacks you with all his personality disorders. Then the real Axon shows up to put a mask on everybody, tormenting them with powers of Persona 5. Ciel is unaffected, so she fatally pulls off his mask, and this is the biggest and the final contribution by Lune and Ciel in the entire story. Before heading back to camp, Verso mentions it being himself, and at the camp, Verso has a secret reunion with his family, getting a letter from his sister and telepathic existential warnings from the father.
Despair blinds you.
To keep Mystery maxing with no reprieve, Mael hands in the items to the curator, who forges the barrier breaker, while she has a vision of a female curator charging at her. Ready to take on the painters, we cruise on to the barrier and break it to enter the monolith. Then we walk up to that large woman and fight her fate, but our attacks fail to harm her. As we wallow in disappointment knowing no one will step on us today, the female curator appears, sets all the female faces on fire, then leaves through a portal into the monolith. And we follow her on a trip down the memory lane of our journey since the first act, along with the journey of a mother. At the end of this lane, we find a father fighting the pain of losing his son by fighting the son. Once defeated, he just gets up and urges Verso to remember his real family. But now the curator shows up. Renoir implores him not to destroy the last piece of his son, looking at Verso, and doing so will not get him back his wife. Paying him no mind, the curator awakens Mael's power to gouge the father. And Verso does what he does best, lie. Up the monolith peak, we see the painters for who she really is, a crazy woman struggling to perceive reality, and it becomes quite clear that Luni and Ciel are more lost than the player. Mael is Alicia, and Verso is dead. In her first phase, she uses her palette to give us a whiplash. In the second phase, she brings out her large self to give herself a giant paintbrush, while Verso pulls out the flight stone for Eski out his ass to take the fight to the air. And in the final phase, she truly loses it. Finally, Mael sets her free, and whatever remains of Expedition 33 returns back home to celebrate for Gamage is no more, to mourn for Gustave is no more. But Verso and Monoko looks shell-shocked because, as Alicia's letter explains, the paintress was just painting a warning, for the real Gamage render was the curator all along. Flashing back in time, we wake up as burnt Mael in the manor, to finally see the bigger picture, along with Monoko and Noku, the family dogs. In the atelier, we find our parents glued to a canvas. Claire, the eldest sister, was waiting for us so that she can patronizingly explain to Alicia what she should already know. During this exposition, we learn of the real world, where people with power to create worlds within a canvas exist, called the painters, and we, the Desandres, are one of them. In a spat with the writers, whom I assume has the power to create worlds within paper, Alicia gets betrayed and burnt, but her brother, Verso, sacrifices himself to save her. Their mother, Aline, unable to endure her grief, loses herself in Verso's canvas, creating a fake family for her to play house with. But Renoir, their father, wants her to get over it, so he tries to pull her out, causing the fracture and the 67-year-long battle that the painted people had to suffer through. Alicia went in to help Renoir, but gets painted over by Aline as Mael. This is where the story either clicks or breaks, because you might feel led on to a disappointing conclusion for a great setup, or you love the well-executed retrospective rationalization of Verso's unhinged actions, blatant lies, and progressive geophysics, among other events. Back in the fake world, Renoir, before going back to the real world with Alicia, extends an apology for turning Verso's life into a living hell. But after hearing the crazy talk now coming from Alicia, he goes into a PTSD-induced rage and starts destroying everything she holds dear. Alicia absorbs something from the air and makes a quick escape, while Renoir just watches. Back at camp, Alicia respawns Sienna and Lune to explain to them that they are in a painting. Everyone takes this exceptionally well, but are surprised that Verso hid more things from them, more so than the Armageddon he was bringing. For Alicia, it's Verso's only canvas containing a piece of his soul, and once she gets out, Renoir is gonna burn it, because he knows they will relapse with just a whiff of that dried paint. And for everyone else, it's everything. To turn the tides on Renoir, we watch them go on the greatest expedition ever to get all the impure coma of dead expeditioners to create an undead army to stave off his creations and stop him. But before we go over that credits, we can go to all the side content that just got unlocked thanks to SK soaring through the skies of the overworld to get us into every nook and cranny we couldn't before. These new challenges will push the combat to new heights, forcing you past your limits to create a one-shot build to skip over that skill issue, unless you want to play Simon Says. Some of these optional quests provide the much needed closure for a lot of these characters, like the Painted Sisters, both of which involves assisted suicide. The Painted Children are not okay. For our party, closure comes from max relationship level, dropping the tragic backstory or a truth nuke on us, like Ciel's attempted suicide and miscarriage. We're confirming that Verso indeed lets Gustav die to create that unbreakable sibling bond. I know there's a lot to do in Act 3, but you gotta hold yourself back from going on a completionist spree, because you will trivialize the final act, as Renoir will gladly wait for you to come to him, since he's busy rehearsing for the best scene in the game.
It's going to suffocate you and take you from us too!
Followed up by one of the best boss fights. After nailing the father, Maya psychoanalyzes him and speaks to him like a true pain junkie. He realizes she is too far gone, since she doesn't even care about her mother literally dying outside. But Verso sees the bigger painting. He enters the forbidden realm where the real Verso's soul keeps on painting to try and stop him. But Mael steps in. We are now presented with a real choice, to either side with Mael so she can control all the painted people to fit her fantasies, while her real family is in shambles, or with Verso so he can bring a blissful end to the painting and save the real family. Eternal suffering in servitude or a merciful oblivion, if you consider the sentience of the painted people to be same as real people. But there is enough here to conclude that the painted people are lesser. So helping the extremely rich family in the 20th century navigate their cycle of trauma and grief through their complex family dynamics is the easiest, morally correct decision ever, rather than the ending with the built-in jump scare. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is undeniably the game of 2025, and one among the best in the past 5 years, not only because of its innovative real-time turn-based gameplay, but also due to its narrative, which spawned endless discourse and name-calling around its endings, its mysteries, its implications, and the meanings to be derived. After the Expedition 33 awards, there has been a lot of accusation of it being overrated, which is understandable, since there were a lot of games who could have easily won over all those rising angels that E33 took home. Even if the game deserves most of its accolades, the Game Awards is supposed to be a celebration of gaming, and 2025 was a really good year for video games.